Hey, he's a runner, he's a track star. Devin fighting Norman, he gonna get sparked. Whoa, 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 whoa. Bob Arum dumps doot, 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 doot on Devin Haney. Calls the boy a runner. I was running, Forrest Gump style. Calls the man the track star. He said running from Norman, he ain't gonna get far. In this video, I will break down everything you need to know about Bob Arum's vicious comments as Devin Haney, Brian Norman, WBO welterweight title fight has been announced. From the top. Now, Bob Arum, he like one of them people where it's like he been in the game so long, he at a certain age, so he really don't care. Bob Arum really don't care. You know how old people, they get to a certain age and they just got no filter? Well, that's Bob Arum. Bob Arum, he's really like, he don't care. He's just going to say whatever he want to say. And you can't tell him nothing. So Devin Haney is being called a runner. You see this graphic. Bob Arum on his verified page, he says, we look forward to working with our friend, His Excellency Turkey, as the best welterweight in the world. Brian Norman Jr. defends his WBO title this November in Riyadh against track star Devin Haney. Wow. It says, again, this November in Riyadh against track star Devin Haney. So Bob Arum, Devin caught her straight. Bill Haney caught her straight. Listen, Bob felt the type of way, and like I said, he ain't got no filter. It is what it is. Now, my thing is this. I have very mixed feelings about what's going on in boxing right now. And allow me to explain to you guys what I'm saying. Throughout my career on this platform and all my platforms and in boxing, I'm not really personally big on the whole runner statement, calling people runners, because historically this has been used against minority fighters. Oftentimes your black fighter, black American fighters particularly, or Cuban fighters. Old media, they would say, oh, this guy ran, he's a runner, and it wasn't even applicable. Like, you have action fights where Floyd Mayweather getting off on Robert Guerrero, getting off on I was born ready, Canelo, and because he was fighting a Hispanic, a Latino fighter, the crowd didn't like how he was dusting them off, so they would lie and say that Floyd ran, but he was right in front of Guerrero. He right in front of Canelo, and Canelo couldn't do nothing with him. You know what I mean? That's on Canelo. You got to learn how to cut off the ring. So I haven't been a fan of like this whole like so-and-so ran and is a runner. However, that's why I said I'm conflicted. Devin Haney's last performance was not great. Shakur Stevenson has had some of them. William Skull, you know, I think William Skull just needed more offense versus Canelo. But the reality is this new generation, there are some guys who are using excessive motion and movement, and it's not, to me, it does kind of fall under the category of running. Pernell Whitaker didn't run. Floyd Mayweather didn't run. Just because you have a defense, that's not running. But you do have some people who, in this younger generation, I feel, they don't know how to like grab the bull by the horns and really matador. So it puts an uneventful fight, right? But it's not just black fighters or defensive fighters. Ryan Garcia, he needs to get slack too for his last performance. See, over here, I keep it even Steven. Ryan Garcia didn't do much of anything once he got cracked and dropped by Rolando Romero, right? He just kind of froze up. So all of these performances, but again, this is all this generation of fighter. So Devin Haney fighting Brian Norman, a lot of people believe Devin still might be compromised from the Ryan Garcia fight. So Norman, how he's been looking is impressive, and it's been brute force, and he does have a power in both hands and a crazy left hook. So yeah, Tim Bradley, he called for Norman to buy some chickens. So a lot of people, Devin is catching strays, and they say you're only as good as your last performance in boxing. So I do know for a fact that, for example, for me, Devin versus Jose Ramirez is a fight I'll never go back and watch. Shakur versus the African, Nakathila, I'll never go back and watch. So some of these fights really are boring. And what makes me annoyed or perturbed is you got fake pro-black people that really don't, they really ain't what they say. You know what I mean? And they'll be like calling everybody coons and stuff like that. But then when Bill Haney called Tank Davis a monkey, they ain't got no words for it. When Bob Arum's taking shots at Devin Haney, the Haneys never truly go off on Bob Arum, a Jewish man from New York. They never really go off on him like they go off on other black contemporaries, right? But you have these fake FBA pro-black dudes that'll be like, oh man, y'all just hating the man trying to oppress Devin Haney. Like, race definitely plays a part in boxing. I've talked about this for years, but some things are what they are. Devin's fight with Ramirez just wasn't fun to watch. Shakur versus Nakathila just wasn't a good fight. There is that. You know what I mean? So there you have people who are messing it up for people like myself, the real people who approach these issues, but I approach the real issues, like where old media is really oppressive and trying to marginalize black fighters. Like when old media didn't want to put Jermell Charlo on the pound for pound list, but he had all the belts and he had a great resume, right? How he not getting on there? So these are the real issues. But what happens is you have people trying to contort other issues to make it like this huge conspiracy, but not like it doesn't always work like that. And I don't like when people do that, where they'll be like, man, I ain't get the job because I'm black, right? And if it makes sense and there's really some kind of prejudice or discrimination, fine, if you have a valid case. But sometimes a person will use that as a crutch, like, man, they just don't want to hire black people. But then you'll see other black people there, they don't want to hire you. You showed up smelling like weed, you know what I mean? You weren't answering the questions good. You have gaps in your employment. So I think overall it's a subject that is subjective, but we have to focus on the real life issues when it really counts, because then it just waters it down. The bottom line is Bob Arum taking shots. You're only as good as your last performance. Devin's last performance against somebody that the crowd views as at a point in his career, he's weaker than Brian Norman. You're going to get this type of feedback, you know what I mean, based on your last performance. A lot of people feel, including me, feel that Devin was kind of forced into this fight. He didn't have successful negotiations with like a Teofimo and this and that. The fight with Ryan fell apart for obvious reasons. Ryan didn't look good and he lost. So, I mean, up until fight, for me, I got to see this fight happen, because a lot can go wrong between now and November. And call me pessimistic, but I have doubts about this fight actually happening on said day. But Devin's going to keep getting this criticism. I told you, he's in between a rock and a hard place until he shows improve. You got to show that you've recovered fully from the Ryan Garcia fight. Otherwise, you're going to continue to get this. You're going to have to step on the gas. And Turkey's talking about no Tom and Jerry fights and all this stuff. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on Devin Haney. And this doesn't seem like a good fight for him next. That's just my honest opinion.